Today, we are going on a journey into a single ancient dream. A dream that didn't just fade away when the sun came up. Nope. This dream literally built the architecture of reality for over 1,000 years. This is the story of a vision that shaped how the entire medieval world saw the cosmos, their place in it, and the very meaning of their lives.
But before we get into all that, let's start with a question for us, right here in the modern world. Why on earth did we stop taking dreams so seriously? I mean, you might tell a friend about a weird dream you had, but we don't really think it holds some kind of prophetic power or cosmic truth, do we? Well, it turns out that's a very, very new way of thinking.
And the difference is just stark. For most of human history, ancient cultures saw dreams as carrying profound weight, as messages, omens, maybe even a window into a higher reality. For us, they've mostly been pushed aside, seen as just superstition or random brain chemistry. So today, we're going to flip that script and explore the world that saw it the other way.
Our story doesn't actually begin in the Middle Ages, but centuries earlier, right in the heart of the Roman Republic, with the dream so powerful it would literally echo through the ages.
It all kicks off with a Roman general named Scipio the Younger. So, in Cicero's famous work, De Republica, Scipio has this incredible dream vision. He's visited by the spirit of his grandfather, the legendary Scipio Africanus the Elder. Yeah, the guy who defeated Hannibal. But this isn't just a family chat. It's a vision of the entire universe, a breathtaking glimpse into the cosmic order itself. Now, a dream in a book is one thing. But for it to become a cornerstone of Western thought for centuries, well, for that, it needed an interpreter. And that interpreter was a man named Macrobius.
So around the year 400 AD, Macrobius writes his Commentary on the Dream of Scipio. And look, this was way more than just a simple analysis. For the next 1,000 years, this book became the foundational text, the ultimate authoritative guide to understanding what dreams meant and the very structure of reality.
And Macrobius's book was about so much more than just Scipio's dream. It was a grand synthesis of ideas. He basically used the dream as a launchpad to explain the whole Neoplatonic view of the universe, this idea that reality flows outward from a single divine source. He dives into how philosophy and literature are connected, and how symbolic language could be a secret key to understanding divine truth.
At the very heart of this grand vision was the dream's picture of the cosmos. So, let's do it. Let's take a tour of the universe as a medieval scholar would have seen it, a journey through the 9 celestial spheres.
Scipio's grandfather kicks off the tour with these exact words. These are the 9 circles, or rather spheres, by which the whole is joined. And you have to understand, this wasn't just astronomy. This was a map of creation itself, a divine hierarchy that put everything in its place, from the stars all the way down to the human soul.
Our journey starts at the very edge of reality. The first and outermost sphere is heaven. It contains everything else inside it. This is the realm of the supreme God, where the stars are fixed in their perfect eternal dance. Think of it as the perfect, unchanging container for all of creation.
Okay, so beneath this perfect sphere, you've got 7 more, the Wanderers, which of course we know as the planets. Now here's a key detail. They revolve in the opposite direction to the heavens, and that introduces motion, change, and time into the cosmos. The first one we meet, the slowest and most distant, is Saturn. As we move inward on our tour, we come to Jupiter. And in this model, Jupiter is just this radiant, benevolent force. It's the celestial body that literally showers good fortune and health down on all of humanity.
Next up is Mars. And, well, its character is unmistakable. It's described as red and terrible, a menacing influence on the world below. You can really see how ancient astrological ideas are just baked right into their map of the cosmos. The sun's role here is absolutely fascinating. It's sitting there, almost in the middle of the planets, but it is not just a ball of fire. It's described as the Lord, Chief, and Ruler, the actual mind and guiding principle of the universe. It's the intelligence that animates and gives light to everything else. And the sun doesn't make this journey alone. It's always accompanied by its 2 faithful companions, Venus and Mercury, who follow its path across the heavens. All right, finally, we reach the lowest of these wandering spheres, the Moon, and its role is absolutely critical. The Moon isn't just our satellite. In this model, it is the great cosmic boundary. It is the line that separates 2 completely different states of being.
And the implications of this lunar boundary are profound. Everything above the moon's sphere is eternal, perfect, unchanging. But everything below it, and that includes us, is mortal, subject to decay and temporary. The moon is the literal border between heaven and earth.
So what's at the very bottom, below that final boundary, the ninth and final sphere? Our Earth. In this model, our world is immovable, fixed at the absolute center of everything. It's the lowest point, the place where all heavy things are naturally drawn.
And there you have it, the complete model. 9 perfectly ordered nested spheres reaching from the divine heavens all the way down to our mortal Earth. And for 1,000 years, this wasn't just a theory, this was the universe.
So living in a universe that's structured like this has some really profound implications. If the whole cosmos is an ordered, interconnected system, well then nothing is truly random, is it? This whole vision created the very core of the medieval worldview. It's the idea that every single event here on Earth, from a king falling off his throne to a flower blooming, had 2 meanings. Sure, it had its literal earthly meaning, but it also had a much greater allegorical meaning that echoed all the way up through those 9 spheres, connecting our little mortal world to the divine and eternal cosmos.
I mean, think about it. From just one Roman general's dream, Macrobius's commentary did it all. It gave the Middle Ages its map of the universe. It forged this powerful link between the stories of literature and the truths of philosophy. And for centuries, it was the final word on what our dreams really mean.
Which, brings us back to our world. We now know the universe is so much vaster, so much more complex than these 9 spheres. But this older vision, where every star had a purpose and every dream could be a message from God, well, it was filled with an inherent, undeniable meaning. And it leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In discovering that our universe is infinitely bigger, have we maybe also made it feel